first of all, thank you all for joining us at our launch event, Elevate Miami. My name is Nitin Rai. I'm managing partner of Elevate Capital. We are an early stage fund with roots in Oregon. We've been around for about 7 years, and our claim to fame, or our core thesis, is we invest in entrepreneurs that are underrepresented, underserved, overlooked, underestimated, and that includes a large contingent of women, people of color, BIPOC entrepreneurs, LGBTQ+, and veterans. We're super excited to be here in Miami and really kind of give you a little taste of what we do, without me sort of telling you what we do, but the founders that we have invested in, some of whom are actually invested in the fund itself, to really tell their stories of how they've built their companies and overcome that overlooking, underestimating environment that they had to face. And I'm super excited to thank our sponsors, Nelson Mullins and Bank of America. Bank of America is a lead investor in Elevate, and one of the great things about this organization is that 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, their CEO made a commitment to support the underrepresented communities, both from an investment standpoint, but also most importantly, funding general partners and funds whose founders were BIPOC and women. They've deployed $500 million in about 150 funds, and they're probably the leaders in the country, maybe even in the world, in terms of how they have supported these founders and really impacting that $4 trillion gap that exists in terms of a GDP gap, where they're trying to help that level the playing field. So with that, I just want to introduce Gene Schaefer, who's the president of Bank of America Miami in the Southeast region, to say a few words.
Thank you, Nick. Good evening, all. Thanks for being here. It's great to see you. Nitin stole some of my talking points, so I got to think about what I'm going to say now. But first of all, I have 1,700 teammates here in Miami from Bank of America and Merrill. So really, I'm here on behalf of them to say welcome. It's nice to see you. And I want to tell you a little bit, I want to expand a little bit on why we're here, why we're involved with this event tonight, and why we're involved with Nitin. Number one, he is a force. I've only gotten to know him recently, but he is a force, and we're really looking forward to having him and Elevate focus in on Miami. The ecosystem in Miami, I'm amazed every time I come to an event like this, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I know with Nitin and Elevate, it's going to continue to grow. So we made the investment in Elevate back in 21, and it was a direct result of what we decided to do kind of in the middle of 2020. So you can think about that time frame. We made a $1.25 billion commitment to address racial inequality and create more economic opportunity for the underserved and the folks that needed it. And so there were 4 pillars. One was affordable housing, one was healthcare, one was upskilling of talent. I'm not going to touch on those, but the 4th pillar was small business. And so from a if you think about Miami, we're one of the top startup small business cities in the States, but scaling up is always a challenge, right? And that's always a challenge. So we're really good at small business once somebody is scaled to a size where bank capital is afforded to them. But that's not where we saw the need. And we have 3.5 million small business customers. That's not where we saw the need. Where we saw the need was really on the startup side. And so our decision was to invest in MDIs, so minority depository institutions. We've invested over $40 million in them, serving that community. We've invested in CDFIs to just keep driving it out for the companies that are not quite ready for bank capital. And we invested, to Nitin's point, we've invested close to $500 million in about 150 VCs. That's how we thought we could make an impact to that startup community. And this is a great example. We are really pleased with our partnership with Nitin. I am so glad. I've been in Miami for 50 plus years. I'm watching this happen before my eyes now, where I was just talking to somebody 5 years ago. We were nowhere close to where we are now. And it's going to happen because of folks like Nitin and because of you all in this room. So I look forward to this evening. And again, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Gene. So we're going to just move right into the panel. First of all, thank you, Kao, for supporting this event. Kao is with Nelson Mullins. He's a partner there, and he'll be the moderator. But I'm really excited to have 3 panelists here that have either, I've personally invested in Monica and invested in the other 2 founders through Elevate. All 3 have done really well. Our very first investment in Miami is JourneyTrack, Ania Rodriguez. These ladies are going to talk about their story, and hopefully it'll be inspiring for everybody. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Cal Prado.
Thanks, Nitin. Thanks, everyone. Want to join? Let's sit down, have a talk. Oh, we have Allie here. Hi, Allie. Can you hear us? Well, thank you. My name is Caio Prado. I'm a partner at Nelson Mullins. I'm focused on venture capital, both on the startup side and also on the fund side. We also do M&A work for tech companies. Our firm has more than 100 years. It's probably the largest firm you never heard about. We are close to 1,000 lawyers all across the US. We're very strong in the Southeast, and we're a full-service firm. And I love working with startups, and especially here in Miami. So it's a pleasure to be with all of you. So to get the ball rolling and starting, so Allie, can you hear me? All right. So I'm going to start asking throughout all of you, all of the panelists here had a lot of experience with multiple rounds of financing, also exits. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what are the strategies that you think are the best for someone starting to raise capital and how to interact with angel investors or VC funds from your experience. Maybe Allie, want to start?
Sure.
Oh, she's not hearing us? Okay, so maybe Monica, you want to?
Oh, did she
okay.
say? Allie, are you hearing us?
I am here. Can you guys hear and see me?
Perfect.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I just connected, or they just put me through, so I didn't hear the question. So does someone else want to go first and I can follow up?
Okay.
Yes.
I'll get going. Hi.
Right.
Hi, Allie. This is Monica Enand, and I had a startup. It's very strange for me to say had, because it's a recent exit. But I started a software company back in 2008, which those of you might remember was a pretty difficult time recession-wise, a big financial crisis. And it was a tough environment to raise money, kind of not too dissimilar from right now, and the recession that you're all dealing with. You know, we had a couple angel rounds, got to cash flow break even, then did our first institutional round with a minority recap with a private equity team, then did a majority recap, and then sold to a strategic earlier this year. And so that was kind of my journey. I would say that I learned a lot along the way, for sure. But if in terms of, you know, interacting with investors, I think the first thing is you got to think of it as a fit, and treat the interaction like you're trying to figure out if this is a good fit for you, even though it doesn't always feel that way, especially when there's more demand for capital than there is capital available. But I think asking questions and thinking about what you want from an investor is really important. Hallie, I'm trying to make sure you know what the question was. So, and so I think, first of all, like trying to figure out what do you want? And, you know, each investor, look, every business has I'm going to say warts, and then I'm going to take that back. Because it's really not warts. Like, every business has risks associated with it, right? If you didn't, then it would have already been done. So you got to figure out, like, what tolerance do investors have for what types of risk? And some investors have no tolerance for market risk. Some investors have no tolerance for, like, new categories. And so you just really have to kind of figure out, are they a fit for what you're trying to do and what your individual risks are? And I think the second, I guess, strategy that I learned early on, especially I was chatting with these lovely ladies who are starting their new app and launching in a few days, I guess, or a few weeks. And, I think one thing I learned early on is that investors, especially the good ones, or the more polished ones, this is even more true, when they say yes, you need to treat that as a maybe. And when they say maybe, they're thinking no. So, you should just assume when they say maybe that their brain is saying no. And because people don't like to say no. Especially investors do not like to say no. Because they don't want to close the door on you, and you may come back and you may be really successful, and they don't want you to go tell your friends that they didn't want to, or have bad feelings toward them. So you really have to kind of like root it out. Like, if they're saying maybe, then figure out what's going on with them and ask a lot of questions, and don't just let it sit there. And if they say yes, you also have to do diligence on that and probe and figure out why and what are their concerns and what risks might stand in their way, and how they're thinking about it. So I think it's like constant diligence on asking questions and trying to root out what's going on with them.
So just to repeat to Allie, so the question was, what strategies would you think are the best ones when you're dealing with investors early on and throughout your capital raising process, and what are the challenges that you faced there?
Yeah, thank you. Well, and it's really great to be with everyone remotely. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. My son has a play this week that I need to be here for. But, my journey, I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. So I've grown and scaled and exited multiple companies. And as a part of that, have had my fair share of pitching, which I actually really enjoy doing. But part of that is, I agree with Monica 100%. It's all about finding an investor that is right for you. And I think a lot of times when we go to raise money, we're just anxious about getting money in and making sure that we can scale the business. And we forget that we should interview our investment partners in the exact same way that we would interview a senior strategic hire. Because when you're growing and scaling a business, sometimes you'll get with an investment group that just expects everything is straight up. And I can tell you, after 25 years, never once have I had anything be straight up. And what you want is, you want a partner that when things are that exact opposite and they're going straight down, that partner is willing to roll up their sleeves, to give you the support that you need, to say, how can I help? And be able to believe in the vision of where you're going. And so reverse interviewing is just as important as you interviewing with them. And for me, growing and scaling my businesses, the biggest component of that has been cultural alignment. So really understanding, what are the values of your business? What do you stand for? What's the why? And then how is it that you're executing every day? And if that investment partner isn't able to align to your vision and mission and values, you don't want them alongside of you, because it's going to distract you from growing and building your business in the way that you want to. And I think the other thing I didn't know as I went to go raise venture capital is that it is a full-time job. So you've got your full-time job as an entrepreneur and trying to grow and scale a business, and you got to keep the rails on, but then you also have a full-time job of just talking to people and meeting people and telling your story. And so the advice that I would have in terms of going and raising capital is to be really specific about the types of investment groups that you're talking to. Understand, I had so many companies reach out to me and say, I was an investor in Tesla. You want to come work with me? And I'm like, Tesla? That has nothing to do with me. Tell me about how you've taken a company that's $1 million at revenue and helped them to grow it to 10 million. And what did you do to help support them? And so make sure that you're prioritizing the time that you're spending to spend time with the groups that know how to scale companies at your size or in your specific industry, so that you're maximizing the time that you're spending on raising your capital. Because finding that right partner can be the difference of your success or not. And so it's a really important decision.
Very good. Ania, you just closed a Series A round, right? Series C round, sorry. So I was talking to your teammates here, and they're all very excited, and I was telling them, when my clients close their rounds, that's when they are really going after hiring more people, putting their plans. And so can you just tell us about that experience and how you got to that point?
Yeah. So it's this is my second company, right? So you learn a lot in your first company, but it's kind of funny. Nitin, when I met Nitin, he told me I was a lot like these ladies. As I hear them talk, I'm like, wow, they are a lot like me. The first company I started was in 2008, and I guess you learn a lot of lessons about hiring people. But just like when you're hiring people, it's also, to your point, finding the right investor. And so for me, as I interviewed and talked to, and I even had a conversation with Allie before I picked Nitin and Elevate to lead the round, because you do have to have, to Allie's point, really good culture fit, right? And so, what we do is we do a culture index to make sure that they fit in well. And so a lot of the strategies that they've talked about, just like you're picking your lead investor, you have to think about when you're picking employees, right? So the folks that I brought on as my initial team were important because they're going to set the sort of the tone of the company, right? And so as you do it the second time, you want people who can help you scale quickly, right? Because you know that once you start taking off, you're going to have to do that quickly. And then second thing, you have to have people who are going to share your values, be able to pull it through. And so the team that I have is my initial team, which consists of Claudia, John, and Kristen, are really sort of that, right? They embody everything that I want, and each of them carry little parts of what I need them to be, so together they form that sort of, for me, the dream team, right? And so important in that perspective.
Monica, just to get on that, I mean, Knitting for a long time. You were talking back here about, your first angel investment, and then Knitting right there at that group at that time. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Knitting and then Elevate and how that worked for you?
Yeah, no, I think Gene said it well. He said a force, and that was definitely what I found is, having investors like Nathan that really put all of their energy and passion. I think during the time I was fundraising, there was not a conversation. I mean, maybe he went to Starbucks and maybe tried to talk the barista into investing in me. I think he literally, everybody he spoke to, he talked about, how excited he was about what we were doing and why everyone, and it really just grew this kind of community of engagement through the enthusiasm that he started. And, I had a number of other kind of, like when you work with somebody, you have to know that they're going to put their all into it because it's your baby and you're going to put your all into it. But having people match you with that kind of energy and feeling as vested in your success, like that's a critical thing. And it's a rare thing because very few people are going to put that kind of energy, to really put their reputation on the line, their word on the line, and use their relationships, use their network. It just doesn't happen very often, so it's definitely a huge benefit.
No, great. Ellie. Very good. Ellie, so just to stay on that theme with Elevate, but also we were discussing in our call before how hard it was to find the right team and the advisors. So can you comment a little bit about how you build your own team and then what role your investors and advisors played in that choice and how you build your teams with the right people?
Yeah, when you are building your team, your venture partner is a big piece of that, like I mentioned earlier, of hiring a strategic member of your team. For me, having the support system, because I think being an entrepreneur can be so lonely, and it is really, really tough. especially as a solo founder versus maybe those that are fortunate enough to have a co-founder. And so finding people that you're able to utilize as a sounding board, as someone that you're able to say, what has been your experience? And one of the things that I really appreciated as I was thinking about building up our board, when I met Nitin, he said, well, I'm an entrepreneur. So everything I'm going to tell you is based on my own experience of being an entrepreneur and being able to help you. And I thought, wow, I'm going to be able to learn so much. And so when you're building your board, you really start thinking about what is everyone's specialty and what do they lend, so that you can build a high-performing team within your board. And one of the things that I will never forget is Nitin knew where every dollar was in his company every single day, and he taught me so much about cash flow, especially in the early days of really needing to watch out of what was going to happen later based on what was happening today. And so really finding out what those specialties are, and again, going back to cultural alignment, because for us, as we raised our early seed funding and we went on to then raise some additional capital, I spoke to over 60 private equity and venture companies over a period of a month, trying to figure out who that right partner would be. And I got a lot of no's, and it was really tough. Because here I am with a growing business, and especially for being a woman and raising venture, I literally got patted on the head, called honey. I got told that I had a nice lifestyle business, even though my company was outperforming all their portfolio co's, and it was rough. And so every time I got to the airport, Nitin was on speed dial, and I would call him going, should I just give up? Is this something I shouldn't even be attempting? Like, why is everyone telling me no? And again, going back to having someone in your corner, every time he said, it will happen. It will happen. Just continue on. And it did. I found the right private equity partner, and we ended up building one of the highest performing boards that was so fun, and through the tough times and the good times was such a pleasure. And so going back to, people are everything, and we know that. We could have the best product in the world, any one of us, and it wouldn't matter if we didn't have the team behind it to make it successful.
Very good. Ania, do you want to comment on that, about how you build your teams and how you choose people to work with you with different skill sets? What do you look for someone that wants to work with you?
I think the biggest thing at the beginning of a startup, and by the way, I want to just piggyback a little bit on this. This is the first time I raised capital. The other company, I built it just from just pure will, right? And this has been a really tough environment to do that, right? So finding a partner like Elevate is a gold mine, honestly. I think there's a couple things that were really pivotal that Allie said that I think, that really sort of resonated with me as I was making these decisions. But it comes down to there's a lot of talk around, trying to invest around women and minorities, but there's few funds that are really committed to it. I even found that women-led funds were probably tougher on women than the Elevate team, right? And so you'll know, to Allie's point, when you find the right partner, that the story that how I met Nitin was really at a Emerge conference, and literally another fund who had said no to me already recommended us to him. And in even that little conversation, which we walked into this other booth in Spain, how Emerge has all the countries, and we sat there, right away if you're going to have sort of that sort of chemistry, and that someone's really committed, not just telling you a story around it. So to me, similarly, when you think about hiring people, you want to make sure, especially early on, right, you're going to have to pick people who are going to really be there, who are going to be resilient, who can do all the jobs, because quite frankly, some days you're going to be HR, some days you're going to be IT, you're going to be everything, right? You're going to be developing a website yourself. I worked at IBM many ages ago, and I had to rebuff everything and kind of do stuff and just be, part of that team, right? And you're going to have to do that. And so, if you can't find people who are willing, who are just the people that just want to focus on one job, they're not for you, right? It's a very different team when you're starting up than when you get a little bit later, right? And so that first team has to be really solid. Otherwise, you get in a lot of trouble at the beginning. So
perfect. Monica, you want to comment on that, about how you build your teams?
Yeah, I think depending on your stage, this building a team concept is it's very different at different stages. Like in the early stages, what I found was it was very much who are the people that we have and what are their strengths and how does it fit? And that's how you would kind of almost design the org around the people in the early stages, because you don't have a person for each job, like an HR person and this, and the marketing and this, and all the different pieces of the puzzle. So you're really trying to take everybody's strengths and say, okay, how do we divide the work? But then pretty soon, as your company scales, you basically have to completely turn that on its head. And you have to say, okay, I have to draw the boxes and then fill in the names. And that's like a very different, and it's a very big shift that really caught me for a loop while I was scaling, because early on I was so much about like, what are everybody's strengths? How do we put it together? How do we work together as a team to get all of this done? And then there came this time where it was like, oh no, I have to draw the org, do an org design that makes sense for the business that we're doing, and then I have to draw the boxes. And then once I draw the boxes, I have to say, who is the best person on the planet that I can get to put in this box? Now, I'm not talking about individuals that are all the best, because that doesn't work. You have to make a team, but you do have to look at each job and go, all right, what are the qualifications? What would I like this person to have done before, that would serve them well in this, have they seen this movie before, stage appropriate? Have they done a company like this from this period? How do I find that person in a similar industry or, whatever it is? And how do I get them? And then how do I bond those people all around a mission and get them working well together? And that becomes your job. Is actually, I would say, maybe 70, 80% of my job ended up being, do I have the right person in the right seat? And are they aligned towards the mission? Do they understand the mission? And then how are we as a team holding ourselves accountable towards that? That became my entire job after you're scaled for a little while. I think it's very different in the early stages.
Do they get it, they want it, do they have the capacity, right? They get it, want it, and have the capacity to be in that position.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to Allie now. So Allie, we were talking about teams and hiring the best people to advise you as well. So were there any situations of conflict inside your company or with outside customers or, whatever stakeholders you had? And what was the importance of your, maybe even lawyers, right? Did you have any experience, good or bad, with lawyers? And which point would you say you need to lawyer up for a startup, or you need to have some advisory board, you need to bring people maybe more experienced than you are? What would you recommend to someone starting today?
Yeah, I agree with what Monica was saying too about in the early days, hiring against your values is a really great way to start, because if people are acting in a way that aligns with how you want to run the business, then you're able to create some magic there. One of the top things that I learned about my team as we were growing, and it was hard for me to come to this realization, was that there is not one person that can scale to every size. So your chief marketing officer when you're 3 employees may not be your chief marketing officer when you're 500 or 1,000 employees, and that's okay. And I think I had to get okay with that myself, to say there's an opportunity for everyone to learn and grow, but I have to make sure that I have the right person in the right role for the stage of the company that I'm at right now. And that means making some really tough decisions. But as it pertains to lawyers, when I first went to go raise my first round of capital, I didn't even know what a cap table was. And so I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. And so I hired a lawyer early on, and it was a big investment for me because I didn't have a lot of money. It's before I actually raised money, but they were able to put in really simple terms for me the things that I needed to pay attention to or to watch out for. And I actually had the same lawyer from before our seed round all the way through to our exit that was able to help advise me along the way. And it's not only for funding. I mean, funding's really important because there's gotchas and ahas that will happen of you think you understand, you've read enough books and enough articles, you really think you get it, but having a Q&A with someone, being able to really get into the weeds on a specific term or how this might affect you in the future is a really important opportunity. And so, the other things that they can help advise on is as you grow, employment law becomes really important. Things that I didn't know that I had to do or that I was responsible for doing that could have gotten us into a potential lawsuit, later on if I hadn't been aware. So lawyers can play a variety of different roles and really help you to build the right foundation for scale. And so you just have to weigh, the costs, with the value and the benefit. But one little known tip that I didn't know, but that now all the companies I advise, I tell, is that once you have raised money and your lawyer is advising you, asking them to join your board meetings, they typically will not charge you. And so because they'll be able to listen in on the meeting and figure out, is there any business here for me, things that I need to pay attention to? But that was a good tip for me, to have lawyers participating on a quarterly basis in our business without some costs, but making sure that they were keeping an eye on anything that I might need to understand or think about as we continue to scale.
That's a great point, actually. I participated early on board meetings and taking notes, but that was a good way of predicting if there's something going wrong. You knew that if was something going on the strategy, if they were looking to sell the company. So it would put you in a much better position as a lawyer to discuss those problems with your clients. We generally work very close with the CEOs and the CFOs later on. And then to your point as well, employment, right? So stock option plans, how to structure them, follow 409A law, making sure you're not going to get fined by the IRS. Those things usually, and cap tables, which seems something easy, but people just have a way to mess them up all the time, and then we have to fix it. But it's something that can make your life much easier early on and allow you to be in a good position to have a data room for your venture capital angel investor or VC to look at your document and say, okay, you did your homework and we're ready to write the check, right? So, Monica, can you tell us a bit about your experience as well?
No, thanks for asking. I think it's really important to have good advisors. But I think one of the traps that some people might fall into and that I might have fallen into is realizing that, your lawyer's there to advise you, but they're not going to make decisions about your business and you can't let them and I'm sure that there are a lot of great lawyers who understand, but their job is to understand risk. And they are very risk-averse people. Like, that's what they're trained to do. They're trained to avoid risk. So they're not thinking about sometimes the upside. I'm sure Nelson Mullins is much better about thinking about the upside. But not all of them are thinking about the upside. They're thinking about all the downside risk. And then your job, like, by the way, you have to take some risk. Because if you don't take some risk, nobody gets paid for not taking risk. So you have to figure out from the business point, the business person, has to figure out from the business, what's the right risk for the business to take. And that is not up to your lawyer. That is up to you. And there are times where your lawyer will think, you have to risk thinking that lawyer thinks you're stupid. But you have to know that, like, okay, no, we are going to take that risk because I can't live this way. I can't do everything and avoid risk at every turn because there's no way to be successful that way. And I think kind of coming into your own as a CEO and coming into your own as an entrepreneur and going like, I know that that's the right thing for this business to do, even though I know I'm taking risks. And I like that someone has told me the risks. I do appreciate that.
That's the whole point, yeah, exactly.
I do appreciate that they've told me the risks. But then you have to not make the mistake of thinking that they're accountable, you're accountable.
That's for sure. No, it's a good thing because sometimes you have clients asking, but what should I do? I'll say, okay, these are the risks. This is what's going to happen if you do A, B, or C. But ultimately, the decision is with you. You're the CEO of the company. We can share on the good times and the bad times, but at the end of the day, it's your company. You have to take ownership of it. So, really good advice. Ania, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, over the last 2 companies, I've learned a lot, when you need to pull in your attorney, advisors. I think for me, when I did So I've had an attorney on one of the businesses for the whole time, Michael here. And with him, we've gone through whatever 13 years of that. When I started this new business, I kind of wanted somebody who was tech SaaS, right? Which is a little bit different. He's worked, fairly well contracts, all the other stuff. But to me, I needed someone who could do that. And initially, honestly, quite frankly, I looked in the Miami ecosystem. It was difficult, so I had to go to the West Coast to find someone who really understood that, right? And granted,
Not anymore.
not anymore, right? Now that's shifted, and that's how I met Paul, your boss there, in Atlanta. But yeah, it was hard to find the right first attorney, and I think that's troubling because you don't know the mistakes you're going to make, right? And so I mean, having had a business, I already knew sort of the basic contracts I needed to have in place to make sure I did that. But like, it became, it's very different when you start and say an LLC to a C corp, right? And so all those differences you start to really play out, especially if you're putting together, your option plans and things like that. So you learn a lot, and so my two experiences with my two different companies has been sort of very different, even though they're both handling enterprise clients, sort of the same input. But a SaaS technology company really needs somebody who understands tech, who understands that whole system, right? So for me, I think what the things I've learned so far is making sure that they get your business, right? And then also, I mean, independent, you're going to keep, you need different types of lawyers for different points, right? And so, we have a different patent lawyer, right, that we have that's different from our, our day-to-day transactional lawyer. So, and then when you go to litigation, if you ever get to there, you want to make sure you're weighing in, right? I think with my other business, Mike, has always told me, like, hey, we really, what I love about Mike is he's always helped me, tell me, like, let's take this risk or not this risk, but he does take it a little bit more, he kind of walks me through it. And I think when you're younger in your business, I think you really have to weigh, like, is it worth a lawsuit or not? Because oftentimes when you're younger in your business, you want to think, oh, I'm going to go after this non-compete or whatever that case may be. And sometimes it just doesn't make business sense, right? You'd rather just pay the person $20,000 and end up with a $100,000 lawsuit, right? And so you do a lot of that, and I think you have to have an attorney who really gets the law, right? Who gets the business part of the law, because otherwise, I think you can easily end up with a very large attorney bill if you get misled.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah. Not with us. Not with us.
With Nelson Mullins.
How are we with time? We're good? Okay, let's keep going. So, Ali, we are here in Miami, right? And the ecosystem is growing a lot. One of the main decisions for a founder is where I'm going to start my business, where is going to be my headquarters, which market should I focus. So how do you see these up-and-coming markets such as South Florida, Miami, and what was your experience choosing the place to start your company? Was it a personal decision? Was it driven by business? How was it?
Yeah, I think I've been a Northwest girl my entire life. But a lot of the reason why I started my software business was a result of a pain point I was experiencing myself. So one of my earlier businesses was a meeting planning company. And so we planned and managed some of the world's largest technology conferences for companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Intel. And so Northwest was a really great place for technology and then providing services to technology companies. And so for me, seeing the issues, fax machines were my tech when I started my company, so that ages me a little bit, but technology was needed. And so I saw an opportunity as a meeting planner to create a business process automation software, and was able to then sell into those companies because it was regionally based and I had relationships there. So, I think it really is, the world has changed quite a bit, especially post-COVID, where the majority of companies that I talk to have a diversified workforce, sometimes even globally. But what does move the needle in business is relationships. And so wherever it is that you choose to grow and manage your company, making sure that you're able to build a community and build the relationships that you need for your business to be successful. And that also goes back to your investment partner, because one of the things about being in the Northwest and our investment partners is that they were able to make introductions to several companies and be able to say, hey, I think your product's needed here and here. So I would say anywhere is a really great place to run and manage your business as long as you're building community as a part of it. And then there's also things to think about in terms of, tax benefits. And is there things that help support small business in whatever area you're in? Because there are a lot of resources that you can also get, especially in the early stages, to run and grow your business.
No, for sure. Monica, do you want to comment on that?
I don't know. I mean, it's been fun being here tonight and talking to all of you and seeing the energy in this place. I can tell that there's really something special going on here, and it feels a lot like, when I was starting my business and just coming to these events, and what you realize is, and no, nothing against people who start businesses in the Bay Area, but in the Bay Area, there's just a very different culture than there is in other places. And, I found that people really rooted for me, and people were willing to help me. Like there are CEOs actually here in the audience that I would have dinner with and would share things, of bigger companies, and they would share their learnings, and they would try to help me. And I felt like everybody was trying to help me. I never felt like people were trying to kind of either compete. Obviously, you're always competing for talent, but if you're not competitive directly, that's very rare that people are if you can find a community where sort of the rising tide floats all boats and everyone has that attitude, that really matters. And it feels to me like that's what's going on here. And we should really be directing this question to Ania, because I haven't spent as much time here, but it feels to me like that's the energy here.
Yeah. It's changed a lot, right? For those that are originals here, right? In the last 3 years, this is a totally different Miami from where we were
For
3 or
sure.
4 years ago. I mean, the first company I worked with, Miami used to not be as friendly to locals. They rather would go hire someone in the Bay Area and then hire locally. When I was, and now that's shifted, right? There's a lot more support in the network. There's a lot more sort of growth opportunity, but it's still nascent, right? We're still, still at the beginning. I know that the mayor's doing a lot to shift that. But yeah, I mean, it's really transformational in that perspective. We've seen a lot of shift, and it's really nice to see funds like Elevate come into town, because I think that could really help our ecosystem, right?
No,
I
for
mentioned
sure.
at the beginning, I couldn't even find a good startup attorney that I could really,
Right.
that could be that sort of the enterprise SaaS, kind of very focused. I had to go to California to find that sort of person, right? Now there's a whole team here from Nelson Mullis. There's, their teams as well, and so that's really neat to see, right? Back probably 10 years ago, the Knight Foundation put together a Women in Technology, and back then it was 5 business owners and 5 industry experts locally, and it was just the beginning of this whole story 10, 15 years ago. And it's so nice now to see so many women that are getting technology. I go to some of the tech meetups, and it's a totally shifted, from where it's been. And so it's nice to see what's come in.
No, for sure. I've been seeing the growth during the past 10 years, actually, and it's very impressive. And, the changes in firms and VCs coming on and angel groups and all of that, so the ecosystem is really growing. So I think everybody's really curious about what you all been doing now. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about, and now we start with Ania. What are you currently working on? What are your current projects? And you just want to talk about, how you got at this point and what you're doing now, what are you focused on, so that everybody can know a little bit about your work at this point.
Sure. I'll go first. I think part of growing and scaling businesses and being an entrepreneur is that you learn a lot along the way. And I'm pretty sure being an entrepreneur means that you could be successful in any career that you choose to do. But for me, growing and scaling, one of my software businesses, I exited in 21 and then ran that company for about 1.5 years before I retired. And now I'm spending a lot of time giving back. And it's one of the most rewarding things that I have done in my career. So I reinvested in all the early stage funds that invested in me and helped give me a leg up. And I serve on a variety of early stage boards where I can step in and run their sales meetings because they don't have a sales leader, or help them with HR issues. And so it's an incredible feeling to be able to be involved and help the next ecosystem of entrepreneurs continue to grow as well.
That's great. That's awesome. It's a really great story. Monica, you want to go next?
Well, Allie is an awesome human being, so having her be part of anything is fabulous. I've known her for years. But, I discovered, like, sometimes people, okay, I exited in February, and then in, like, literally February 2nd, everybody started saying, are you starting another company? And I was like, oh, no, I am not. And I couldn't figure out, why would they say that, such a thing? Like, I just started to breathe. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's funny because on the one hand, I would just go, oh, absolutely not. I'm not starting another company. But then people would say, well, did you regret? Like, it was a hard journey, but I never, I found that the thing, and for those of you who are thinking about entrepreneurship, might be at big companies. I think I chatted with some people who are thinking about leaving their big company jobs, and I would just say it's been the most amazing and rewarding journey of my life, and that what I have figured out is that what I love, it doesn't matter what industry, I'm not actually, I thought I was like really invested in certain technologies. I'm really not. It turns out that the joy of life is like being part of something with a team of amazing people that challenge you, that's something that's bigger than yourself and that's hard. And being hard is actually a requirement, because it turns out that when you get through that hard thing, there's this thing called type 2 fun instead of type 1 fun. Type 1 fun is like fun at the moment, and then type 2 fun is like fun, you look back at it, it's like, oh my God, it was the most amazing fun thing. Type 2. Yeah, crazy. But it's the most amazing thing in your life. And so, I think what Allie's saying, for me, what I'm doing is, giving back, definitely serving on boards and being on with amazing teams and helping entrepreneurs. That's really, I feel like it's a little bit of an addiction now.
Very nice.
I'm just starting. I'm starting this new thing. So we're in the process of hiring developers. So if anybody's in there developing,
I'm
so
sure.
we're hiring some developers and hiring the team and starting to create sort of traction. So we're at the beginning of this journey again. So
very good. Well, I think now I'm gonna leave the audience make a few questions. So if anyone has questions to any of the panelists, to all of them, please raise your hand. We're gonna reach you. Back there, gentleman in white.
Let's see if this is okay. Quick question. So Edward McGovern, I started a startup. I was in law enforcement. Came out after responding to some critical incidents like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to create software to help us respond better. Co-founded with my sister who was in education, so it was a natural mix. It's both sides of the conversation. So the stage we're at, we're in a pre-seed round. And it's very interesting because you both raised in 2008, which is very similar to now. How do you get past that hump where you need money to get traction and you need traction to get money? Because that's where I am.
Yeah. Yes. I know that hump very well. Allie said something earlier that I agree with. Like, when you're fundraising, it's like a full-time job. And trust me, I kissed a lot of frogs before I found any princes. So you're going to kiss a lot of frogs, that's for sure. But I actually think if you're going to invest for every ounce of energy that you invest in raising money, invest 2 in the traction thing. Like, you got to invest 2 or 5 times the amount of effort in the traction thing. Because, by the way, before I had any traction, I was kissing all these frogs who were saying no to me all the time, and I felt like totally, like I would never get it off the ground, and I don't know why I was doing this, and it was really depressing. And then the minute I got some traction, I was like the prettiest girl at the dance, man. Like, everybody wanted to talk to me. And then, like she said, all these people were calling her and like, I invested in Tesla. Yeah, like all these people. Yeah, it really changes the conversation. And so instead of telling people what you're going to do, start doing it. One thing that I did in that period of time is I started a friends of mailing list. Like if I met you at an event and you were an investor, you got on my friends of list. And then what I would do is send these monthly emails, and it would say like, here's the good things that happen, here are the bad things that would happen, and here's what I'm going to do next. And then I would say, here's what you can do for me. And by the way, these were really short. I know it sounds like a lot of sections, but they were very short and very bulletized. And it was like, I'm hiring this person, so help me with this. Or there was always a call to action. And I started sending it every month. And there were people who like said no to me. But then every month when I had here's what I said I would do, and then when I said, here's what I did, you get that pattern of like, I said I would do this, I did it. I said I would do this, I did it. I said I would do this, I did it. You have a few of those, and then people go, oh, geez, like she's starting to do what she says she's going to do. And they start believing in you. And that helped with the sort of getting traction. You just kind of proof points that you were giving people.
I do the same thing. This is interesting. Yeah, so you have to send them, you have to get them sort of invested and send them updates. I actually still have a little bit left of the round, right, to close out the round, right? So I did what's called an initial close, and then now I have this tiny little bit money. And so for me, like, what's interesting, some of the no's I got, now that we have a little bit more traction and we do have a lead, are now coming back around. So sometimes you get those no's that you kind of still want or like, and then they kind of come around the second round. What's interesting is at the beginning, nobody wants to lead, and all they tell you is they want to follow, right? And then you finally get the lead, and you're like, all right, let's go. And they're like, no, well, there's too much little space left in the round, so we're going to pass. Or what version of this? So there is a lot of folks who just, to her earlier point, don't want to tell you, a no, right? And so they tell you this runaround no. The question, I know I forgot the question was...
What was the question? Oh, he was saying, how do you balance getting traction with
how to balance traction
versus raise.
So to me, you have to get traction, right? And there's no way around it, right? I worked on getting huge logos first, right? So I had Google, Prudential, Mass Mutual, worked on that, so I had eye candy, and then that made it a little easier, right? And so you have to figure out what your eye candy is.
But it's not easy.
Ellie, you wanna comment on that as well, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing about traction is that it teaches you what the actual value of your company is. And, as you get more people using your product or your software, you'll get a much clearer pitch around why you do what you do and why it's successful. And so I totally understand the early days where it's like, I need money to scale, but I've got to have the scale in order to get the money. But you can start out really small. A company that I'm advising, he actually used to be my VP of customer success, and he started his own company post-exit. He was just in this boat where he wants to raise money, but he doesn't have traction yet. And so one of the things that we talked about is he went into these companies and he would meet with the VP there, and he would say, hey, could you do a customer case study in return for using my software? And so they would say, sure, it seems like you're going to give us the value that we're looking for. And so he got them to use their software, do a customer case study, and convert to a paying customer. And that was all within a period of 3 to 6 months. And so you can really think about, I know it takes a lot of money to go out and gain large market share, but start small and even if you have to offer to do your product or service in return for a case study, if you can start to convert those customers, that's a really compelling story because it shows that they actually have used the software and then they're willing to pay for the software. So it is possible to start really small and get some of that traction, really understand what your customers are saying about why your product is of value, get them to buy it, and then bring that story to your investors. And it's a very compelling story.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Daniela with DocaBoat.app. I'm COO, and this is Princess Martel, CEO. And first and foremost, you guys have rocked my world. I think our world today, too. It's honestly unbelievable to really feel so empowered by 3 incredible women. It's very inspirational, and I think that it just like sets a track of a positive mindset moving forward for us specifically. And kind of piggybacking off of the previous question as far as making your traction more, I guess, proactive and resourceful, I really wanted to ask what your take was on outsourcing your team to international countries. Not so much development, but maybe marketing, design, areas where support, areas where at the beginning it's very obviously difficult for us to hire, full-time employees here in Miami. We would love to support local, but, at the beginning it's very difficult. So what is your take on outsourcing talent internationally?
So my team is in Argentina, my development team.
Yeah.
So when I started building this, I was running the consulting company that I started, and I was lucky to have met along the way on a project I did for customer journey mapping at Office Depot. I met a really good dev team, and then I had another in India that I had talked to. So I had like 3 teams that I could go to, and I did a RFP. I kind of did that. What that's afforded me is, even if, what I'm paying for a senior dev, a very, very senior dev, is very different, right? So I might pay $7,000, $8,000 a month versus if I tried to get a senior dev here, I'd be probably paying $12,000, $15,000 a month. So it's that, right? But as long you have to find the right partner. It's scary. When I worked at IBM, we actually started IBM India at that time, and we had the team I was managing we were just literally starting a UX team in India, and so I had to go there and meet, and there was a lot of folks that we met that didn't, that weren't going to meet to be the right partners. So when I did this, I kind of needed to make sure that I had to pick the right partners. I think that's the scary part, right? Trying to find that. As I expand now, I've been weighing a lot of that sort of questions in my head, and we talked a little bit. I talked to Kumar a little bit, like what type of skills can you sort of outsource and not. I think as long as you have a good team, it could be a team anywhere. I do, part of the money that I got was Deep Work Capital, and it's the part of the Florida Opportunity Fund. So I have, a commitment to, hire in Florida, if you will, as part of that. And but you balance it, right? At the startup, quite frankly, all of us were part-time. We're straddling. It's really expensive really quickly when you're trying to hire people and just start things going. So you have to kind of find ways to quickly do it. We for a while there, we had like business developer reps, people who are just emailing out of Latam, and there's some negatives around that. Just a heads up, Google will ping you because you now have like another country in there, and it kind of breaks your domain a little bit down, is what I'm learning now. But there's, I think as long as you have, I always make sure that they speak English well, because I do have my head of product in the States. I do enterprise work with a large brand, so I have to make sure that we have that team. As long as you can find good people, you can find good people anywhere, but you have to balance it.
Monica?
I would just add, I think all that she said is right. I would add one little thing, and that's that what I found is if you don't think of it as outsourcing, I mean, you might think of it as outsourcing, but don't talk about it like that. Like, really talk about it as a distributed team and try to make everyone, because it's very, very easy to become like a caste system or like a class, like second-class employees and first-class employees. That happens very quickly and easily. The ones that are at headquarters feel like they're first-class employees and treat people otherwise. And you have to make sure that you stop that right away. Like, right away, we are one team. We're all vested in the success. If you're doing stock options, and you can do them with those people, and good lawyers can teach you how to do these phantom things that they know how to do for people in other countries when you can't do stock options or whatever. But
Right.
I think that creating the culture is really, really important.
Ellie, you want to jump on that as well? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I agree with both of these ladies in terms of their experience and what they found. I think for me, in the early days, I was like, oh, outsourcing. They're going to like do all this work. But what I didn't realize is that I needed to be really clear around requirements and make sure that I was managing those people in the same way as I was managing my team here. And so I had outsourced teams all over the world, mainly for our development, but we had to really figure out culturally, how did we all connect? And so there were things that we did to make sure that we were all one team. So they would attend our team meetings, they would participate in some of the happy hours. We had to be really thoughtful around the time that we ended up doing things so that everyone could participate together. And as we combined our teams, both with onshore and offshore, it was making sure that the goals were sort of combined. So it really was a high-performing team and that they were all moving towards the same goals and being held accountable to the same things.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Anyone else? Oh.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrew Davies from Think Inc. We're a seed investor. Hi, Ania. I'm actually meeting Ania for the first time tonight, and we're helping her close out her round. So, as a seed investor, I look at a lot of balance sheets, and what I worry about when I'm putting in seed capital is what's your runway, and then when do you start thinking about raising the next round? Where do you guys, I mean, I know like you're always trying to raise capital in a way, but realistically, you're just getting done with the marathon of getting an institutional investor, getting other investors to come in on that round. How much runway do you give yourself before that balance sheet stops burning off cash?
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, I think right now you have to be super careful in this economy, right? This economy has been I've been in business for as long, for whatever, 12, 14 years, 15 years, I guess now. And this is probably the hardest time I've seen. It's been like a 2008 replay itself. I started my first business in 2008, and so I'd like to start them on the bottom and bring them up. That's what I think a theme now. But that's part of what I'm kind of reserving, right? Because I'm trying to not burn too quickly the cash that we just got, but at the same time grow, right? And so I think we've had different conversations, but I think you have to show a good traction to go to the next Series A, right? I don't want to be in a position where I haven't shown the traction, so I need to make sure that as I, deploy this initial money that I'm showing that traction. I think 2 years ago it was very easy to go quickly from a seed to Series A, and what I've read and I'm seeing, and even from other companies that I've advised, is like, now you better just, there's a lot of bridge rounds happening, and there's a lot of just push to get you the stuff, right? And so for me, what I'm pulling with the investors I have, and hopefully you in the future, is really sort of, right now I built it based on 18 months, right, that I have from a cash flow perspective. But as I continue to do it, I think now we're at 22, 24 based on our new sales and things like that. I'm going to try to make it last, but boom as fast as I can, so.
Takes a long time.
That's what you got to do now.
Monica, you want to?
Oh, no, yeah.
That's it.
No, it takes a long time. Whatever time you think it's going to take you to raise money, multiply by 2.5.
I think Kelly agrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well. Any other questions, or we're wrapping up? Okay, we're wrapping up, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank all the panelists. Everybody. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allie.
Thank you guys for a great discussion and great questions. All right, so next part of our program is we're going to wrap up, and we have a special guest here tonight, the mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez. It's a really great pleasure for me to introduce him. I had a chance to speak with him, and he's one of the catalysts of why I'm here. So with that, Mayor Francis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. What a beautiful night in the city of Miami. Gene, thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank everyone from the Elevate team. We in Miami, we seek to be different. We want to make sure that everyone in our city has an opportunity to be successful. No matter who you are, no matter where you grew up. We call that a Miami for everyone. We strive, whether it's through educational initiatives, whether it's through Venture Miami, to make sure that everyone is getting that opportunity, that no one is overlooked, and that some of the things that have happened traditionally in our country, where some of the people who deserve an opportunity and deserve funding, but for whatever reason, there has been a dislocation between that opportunity, between those founders in those groups, and the capital that they need to do what we all at some level want to do, which is, there's a saying in my office, which is we want to make a dent in the universe. Very small indentation in a very, very large system. And I can tell you that I've had an interesting year. I have been the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I've run for president of the United States, and I'm back to being the mayor of my city, and I'm having more fun today than I have in any of those other iterations. It's because of moments like this. It's because of all of you. It's because everywhere I go in my city, I feel this incredible energy, this incredible promise, and it comes at me from all of you. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to serve all of you, to try to create the most dynamic, most responsive ecosystem in the world, really, not just in this country, not just in this state, not just in this area, but in the world. In the charter, my official title is Chief Executive Officer, but I really believe that it should be changed to Chief Ecosystem Officer, because the truth thing, thank you. I wasn't like asking for an applause, but because the truth is that it's our job, and my job is much, much greater than running the corporation of the city of Miami. My job and my responsibility is to fight for every single one of you, and for your children, and maybe not any grandchildren here, but for your future grandchildren, And as I was looking at reading about the event and the panelists preparing for tonight, the one thing that, there were two words that sort of jumped out at me. And it's a reminder every time I'm in a room of incredible founders. The first one is grit. And the second word is adversity. And every time you're in a room of founders, they always go back to those two words. It's hard. I mean, how often do you hear that from some of the most accomplished people? Guys, you know, they say this in the churches in Miami. They see the glory, but they don't know the real story. They see the finished product, these companies that are changing the world, but they don't understand the sleepless nights, the anxieties, the stresses, the near failures, the sometimes failures, and regrouping, and the stick-to-itiveness and the grit that's required to push through, to believe no matter what, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how dark it is, no matter how desperate it seems, that you are going to prevail and that you will make a dent in the universe. And so I want to thank you, Nitin, for doing this. I want to thank your LPs, your investors, your participants, the companies, all of you. Without you, without your stories, without your successes, without your changing the world companies, I don't think the world would be what it is, and I don't think Miami would be what it is at this moment. And I really believe that we are on the precipice of something radical. I really believe that. This room right here did not exist in this city 10 years ago, probably didn't exist in this city 5 years ago. It did not exist. This building did not exist. I was walking into the building and I said, man, this building is beautiful. It's like the second time I've been here. But it's a testament to who we are. It's a testament to what we can do together. It's beautiful. It's exciting. And it's exciting because it's different. It's not going to be the same old thing. We look different. We sound different. We are different. And that's beautiful. And I think that's what makes us special as well. And in this new frontier, in this new world, in this digital world, that, you know, we're seeing this transformation from a highly industrial to a highly digital world. That difference, that uniqueness is what's going to propel us. And it's what's going to propel each and every one of you and your companies. So again, I want to say thank you for believing in our ecosystem. I want to say thank you for your inspiration, because every time I have an opportunity to be here, and I just came from a tree lighting ceremony, so it's a radically different event. But every time I get to be in a collection, in a room full of people, I feel like I leave at least 0.1% smarter, just through osmosis, just from absorbing your energy, absorbing your gaze, trying to read your minds as I'm up here. and think, what are you guys thinking right now? What are you thinking about this guy? The truth is that it really is incredibly different than it's ever been. And I was born here. I'm the first mayor of Miami in the history of the city of Miami that was born in the city of Miami. And that's in over 125 years of history that we have. So what that means is not just that we can produce our own talent, which I think is very important, that we're able to produce our own talent and that we become a pool of talent, but we also welcome talent from outside. A lot of people weren't born here. In fact, I would say maybe 70% of the people. Why don't we do this? Let's do a show of hands. Who was born in the city of Miami or in Miami? Okay, who was not born in Miami? I think the numbers are holding firm here. It's about 70-30, maybe even 80-20. Maybe even 80-20. So again, that is something special about who we are. You don't have to be born here to be successful. You don't have to be born here for us to accept you, to love you, to nurture you. If you are, that's great, because you understand the essence of who we are. You understand our DNA. You understand our culture. You understand, our soul. But part of that DNA and culture and soul is that we weren't all born here. And that's beautiful. And frankly, it's a testament to what this country is. Not everyone who lives in this country was born in this country. My parents were not born in this country. They came at 12 and 7. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. Thank you all for inspiring all of us. Let's keep the momentum going in this city. Keep talking to each other. Keep ideating with each other. Keep building with each other. Keep believing in each other. Keep investing in each other. Because before this moment, we were a very robust community of small businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. We were phenomenal, and that's great. What scale allows you to do is change the world. And what I see here is people who want to change the world. And that is touching and inspiring and motivating to me, who humbly would like to make a dent in the universe. So thank you and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Suarez. I just wanted to thank your community that has stepped up to make this event a success. If you would stay for a few minutes. So first of all, thank you for your leadership. You've opened Miami to all kinds of people, investors, startup founders. You open it up to me. And we're here, and we're here to stay, and we're here to make a big impact. I want to thank Chao Prado and Rebecca Lester for helping make this event a reality. Where's Rebecca? If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have done this event. So they were really encouraging and supportive. And I want to just especially thank a bunch of people here. Some of them are here, some of them are not. But really, it's a testament to how welcoming Miami has been to me. And it inspired me to write a check as a starting point. But Victor from 3i Cap, if you're here, they're right there. Yeah, so Victor was an early catalyst in welcoming me to Miami. And I came here for 1 week in January. I had, in 5 days, 12 meetings. And it just was transformative. I said, there's something going on here, and I need to come back. Laura Gonzalez Estefani from Venture City, she's not here. She welcomed me with open arms and just was great. Jared Schwitzy from Miami Angels, Kat Wilson, Jorge Sato, is he still here? Thank you for the intro to him. Juan Manuel from the Lazo Group, Ania Rodriguez, JourneyTrack, she opened up a Rolodex. Nicole from Refresh Miami, Leanne Buchanan from Miami-Dade Innovation Authority. Thank you for inviting me into your board meetings and help with selection of some great entrepreneurs that you're going to invest in. Francesca Covey from Miami-Dade County. Luis Rebello, Silicon Valley Bank. Are you still here? Without your invitation to attend Emerge, I would have never found Ania. So thank you. Sebastian for volunteering at the front desk. Thank you so much. Clarissa at Builders Collective. What a great thing you're doing here. What a great thing you're doing here. And last but not the least, a special shout out to Elliot Machado of the Sarhan Real Estate Group and Roberto and Nicholas from NAR Design, because you are helping me create a special nest for myself in beautiful Brickell. So thank you so much. So thank you all again. Enjoy the food and drinks, and please use the photo booth and promote us. Thank you. Good night.